Hello class, Dr. Mike here. So with Introduction to Operating Systems, and we're looking at an sort of introduction to security. And I'm gonna highlight some of the important parts and go a little bit in depth on some of the areas I think it's worth talking about. Security is a huge topic, and you're definitely gonna see more and more of it introduced at different levels through different courses. But this is an introduction to security, and we'll start with threats. And first off, what are the threats from security? Well, job loss, integrity loss, probably identity theft and financial loss are some of the biggest ones. And of course, we've seen with different issues with ransomware, loss of files or data, and of course with data breaches, loss of your data, whether it be financial, health, or just general account data, or PII, which is personal identification information, phone numbers, email addresses. So first off, start with the simple stuff, malware. So look at some terms here. Malware is just that. It's a sort of malicious software. It has many forms. It has many uses. Again, probably the most common we'll see in today, of course, is ransomware, but malware itself can also be a backdoor, so that's hidden away. Rootkit, as you see here listed. So malware has many forms, and we're going to refer to those many forms. And we do is talk about the term vectors. And this is, of course, the form of malware, what it's used for. A vector is sort of an attack trajectory, or how an attack happens. Clickbait, social media, a Trojan horse, things like that. These attack vectors come in many ways. Social networking is a huge one, of course. That probably goes along with macros or embedded documents, which is a piece of malware. Used in a lot of attacks. So many of the ransomware attacks actually come from that. But there's also a malware that's used, like worms, that will actually search the network for the same vector. What would be the same open and secure port? You may not sure what port means right now. We'll refer to that later in the course. But so a worm could be used to move around the network. An email could be a vector for an attachment that has malware. So again, another huge one is stealing passwords. Definitely want passwords, either with keystrokes, password crackers. There are password dictionaries out there, lots of them, that are used for password cracking. So what do I have here? I have WeakPass, which is a website I use for my hacking that's got all kinds of password dictionaries. Some are really huge, 12 gigabytes. That's text. So this, of course, can be used to generate. And you can see, here's some samples. So if you have password 1234 or password 1, you're going to be at the top of most lists. So we're going to come back to passwords here in a little bit. But for now, let's move on. So a zero-day exploit. Again, this is an overview. This is a vulnerability that's been found but is not known to the publisher. These are very difficult to prevent. They're usually disclosed in what's called the dark web, and usually purchased. The exploit is usually purchased for this. It can be very expensive. Now, flip that, a vulnerability that's discovered, and a vulnerability has many forms. It could be a piece of code. It could be an insecure configuration. It could be sort of even a business process. An example would be if I call the help desk and I pretend to be somebody, and then I can get information about that different user's account. So, how we exploit, how vulnerabilities present themselves are in a lot of different areas. Now, a zero-day exploit really specifically talks about code or software or operating systems that have an exploit that has not been known yet to the manufacturer or the owner of the software. Virus, again, a virus, this is sort of a generic term. basically it's bad code. It's malware. Malware and virus really are the same thing. So again, a wide range of things that can come from it. It could be very stealthy. It could be very ransomware. It can encrypt everything and lock you out of your system to a stealthy backdoor that lives on there forever. So Techless already a worm. Again, it's a piece of malware that's used to move around the network. Usually it is network aware and usually replicates itself. There's some examples there you can look up, and the text might actually talk about those in a little more depth. So there's some other terms here, a botnet or a bot. So what does that mean? So in turn, what we have is a piece of malware. Usually it's hosted out here somewhere. Let's say this is it's a virus. It's hosted out on a web server. Uses the main code of the viruses. And then the vector that gets into, let's just pick a company here. This company here, someone at the front desk gets a piece of email. So this is our vector. And then email has an attachment, say a Word doc. It's supposed to be doc. The doc has a macro virus. So here's our virus. Now, of course, the whole virus is actually not stored in here. Usually it's stage 1, stage 2. Stage 1 is a very small piece of code that when it's open, it leverages, in this case, it could be a 0-day, it could be a known exploit, which will be Visual Basics for Applications, a VBA or macro code. And it runs and it will go out and fetch and install and run the virus code. Now this could be, let's take the term of a stealthy code. And it actually opens a backdoor. So it's going to open a backdoor for use by, we'll say our evil hacker, or put horns on him. Excuse my drawing skills. Now part of that could be, so again we see a macro code, which is a stage 1 code, which fetches a virus, which is an exe. And then in there could have our worm, which will search out the network and maybe find, and this exe code could have exploits in it. It could be 0-day, it could be just known exploits. And so it can make its way through part or all your entire network. Now it could just live here, and it could offer what's called zombies. These become zombies. And these zombies all communicate out, let's draw it over here instead, to what's called a bot herder or a botnet. And then this becomes our zombies. The bot herder sort of is someone who controls it. So maybe our evil hacker could control this botnet. A lot of times you can rent these out, used for all kinds of other attacks, but these could be used for in that case. Or this could detonate. We could detonate this exe file and then ransomware across the network wide. We lock out everybody's files, and we hope to get some money, which is usually one of the main drivers behind a lot of that, especially ransomware, is money. So an idea there of what a botnet is. Spyware. Spyware is sort of on the edge of being a virus and not. Some people go as far as say Google Chrome spyware. I use Google Chrome a lot for education stuff. I have different browsers for different reasons. Some for personal use. Using Facebook could be almost considered spyware. Things that you plug into your browser that maybe offer you the weather and in turn collect information about what you're doing, tracking, for example, and not really maliciously, not done to sort of exploit you as an individual, but used in marketing to get maybe click information or for advertisements that gather information about where you've been. So spyware is sort of on the edge there. It's really more of a privacy. Important thing to know is that without permission, that's actually the bad part. So if I install let's say on my mobile device, I go ahead and install a Solitaire app and it wants access to my instant messages. Well, why? So whereas if I install, or it wants location data, why would Solitaire app need location data? Whereas if I install an app weather app that needs location data. Well, that makes sense. Weather location information for a weather app might make sense. So it is a fine line there. Some of it could be malicious, malicious in nature. Adware really is this too. Probably the first line of defense as a regular user is to show up and use a secure browser and to use plugins. So things like Ghostery or uBlock Origin to block out some of these questionable cookies, questionable tracking, and external scripts that might run from third-party things. Of course, pop-ups are usually now off by default. But in any case, a lot of times, let's take this example here. We'll do a new one though. Browser hijacking itself, and I actually have a demo that I usually do in class, but I also posted here. It is why I hijack a browser. And what happens is if I want to infiltrate company XYZ here, so I could try attacking the network, but it's not that easy. They have good firewalls, they have good defense, they're patched, they don't have Wi-Fi open outside of the building. So to get into XYZ, I might do other things. I might watch their traffic. And I don't know exactly what the traffic is, but I might watch it going to certain websites. I notice a lot of traffic goes to even physical traffic. Let's just say, let's expand this. Let's use our hacker mentality here. I sit and watch company XYZ and I see a delivery truck that comes every afternoon from, let's say, a Chinese restaurant in town. Well, I can find that restaurant's webpage online. And now, again, company XYZ is secure. All their website material, everything, solidly locked. It's going to take a lot of work to get in. However, I noticed this restaurant website is woefully insecure. So I could call this poisoning the well. I'll hack this website here and I will inject malicious code that when someone inside the company clicks to order, I hopefully have a chance to get into that method. So it's sort of a side channel attack. I'm not directly attacking them directly, I'm coming through this channel here. Some examples in cybersecurity history, sounds like funny, like history. The Target hack, it came through an HVAC vendor, which Target had a poorly fragmented network. They didn't have any proper subnets, so the payment system's on the same subnet as the HVAC system, so it was easy to transverse and move around the network. So again, you come in through a side channel. So browser hijacking is a big one for that. That's one little quick idea how you can do it. Spam, I think you know what spam is. Usually spam's just noise, junk mail, but spam could also hold links to websites or other malicious malware. Instant messages, I get those too every so often, so-and-so, click here. I'm not clicking on that. So probably the biggest one, this is really the biggest attack vector, social engineering. You can hear about this in other classes. There's all kinds of examples of hacks that happen over the phone. Someone gets a phone call saying, this is your bank, we think your account's been compromised, can we get your login information? It could be an email. It comes in all kinds of ways. It can be done from a team of people, from a single person. The idea is they want to reveal information about themselves, and maybe not everything. Maybe the attack only wants to reveal your login ID, but they don't want your password. It might be to gather information about you. And on that, let's talk about social engineering too. Is scraping the social media itself. This is something I've done last year. It was a couple years ago here, in an attack, which was find out the company I'm trying to attack. Find they have all their marketing managers and stuff have, of course, social media accounts, and on their Twitter account, I can determine their college, their favorite book, maybe from their Facebook information, where they live, things like that. I looked at one attack where one of the high levels of the companies had a sibling who was on Facebook that was a photographer. Could I use that as an attack vector? Can I somehow maybe hack the sibling's account, daughter or son, and use that to send an image, a picture that has been embedded with malware. It wouldn't be unusual for if your brother, sister, son or daughter that was a photographer, sent you an image. So you can see there's a level of trust there you try to breach. And that's what social engineering is to either gain that trust or leverage that trust to get information and to attack an account typically. So identity theft, this one I think we've all seen. It's just that someone wants to steal your identity. Probably the biggest way there is for financial. So tracking your bank account activity is very critical. So of course, other things are child porn, things like that, distasteful content. Then come through malicious tools. Not too much though. A lot of times, really, the work for malicious tool use is to go ahead and, either hack, ransomware, get access, get passwords. But it can be used for also defacement. So again, let's go back and talk about the link real quick. I do have an example here. So this is a real example from when I was a adjunct professor. I got an email in my inbox, and it said, dear staffs, right away I should, and students, so right away I should tip you off. IT desk requested all students and staffs to verify, uppercase V, their account to ensure account safety. Verify my account. Now, of course, right away I know not to link on this. Don't click on links you're not used to. You're not sure what they are, especially if they're questionable. In fact, you can right-click and copy the link and paste it like I did here, and look at it, and you can see it's actually a redirect to this. And I'm actually going to go to this website, this funnydos.com. I just submitted this to the help desk as a phishing attack, but it'd be interesting to see what this was. And a lot of times, an attack like this might actually have a web page I set up that looks like maybe a Sinclair website, logo and everything, and it'll ask for your information. You put in your username and password, and actually follow through the attack and say, well, thank you, your account is now verified. You're free to continue as usual. Unbeknownst though, I may have now just fed them my name and password. So, and this comes through email. And the email attack vector is still a great one because there's a level of trust with email. So a ring of trust. Example, if you get an email from Crazy Dr. Mike, computer sales, it'll probably end up in your spam folder. And then if you got it, you're like, who's this Crazy Dr. Mike? I don't need to buy computer parts. Delete it. Right? Even though it had a few links to malicious software, so some malware I want to get on your computer. But if you get an email from your professor, that's from an @sinclair.edu, you go, well, I'll trust that, and I send you a link. Well, I'll probably link on it. I trust, this Professor Dr. Mike here. Professor Mike is giving me a link that's not malware. So email is a very, very valuable tool for getting in. This is a horrible looking thing. It's vision privacy. I mean, it's about information, personal financial information, health information. That's another malicious way the tools are used. Cookies. This is a good one. So, cookie use. This is where a browser plugin like I have here, like uBlock Origin, or I have Ghostery or some other ones, can block cookies. So in fact, let's see, there's none right now let's open up like, let's just do weather Dayton, right? Weather.com. Let's see, all right, so uBlock Origin is blocking. Look at these, all these .wx.co, rubyproject.com, that's probably Ruby Project, Campbell, Google, doubleclick.net. Yeah. So I went to weather.com, but look at all these different sites that are somehow interjecting things into my session. And you can see, of course, it looks like weather.com though. So what's going on there? What does that mean? So I come in, There are two types of cookies. There's first-party cookies, which come from the website. So let's use Amazon. We all love Amazon, right? So Amazon.com, first-party cookies, they're okay, they're good. I use that. I need it for to create secure connections. I need it to when I go to Amazon website, it says "Welcome back, Mike. Here's your inbox, inbox, your shopping cart, or inboxes, anything that's for interactive. We'll use cookies, and these are okay. First-party cookies are fine. What third-party cookies are, they come from external sources like DoubleClick, maybe some other adwares, and some of them can be tracking. And not in the malicious sense, performance tracking, like how fast did it take for this page to load. Some websites don't have that way to create their own. They'll sort of bring this third party and say, hey, help track my, my performance. How long does someone spend on the home page? How many minutes or seconds before they click, and where do they click to? Again, the idea is not malicious. They use this to go ahead and track page use, things like that. It's to help optimize their website. But a lot of times they might actually come in as a third-party cookie. Again, probably because adware, advertising. Definitely one that will look at surf habits, things like that. This is like our DoubleClick here. It's advertising. So when I come to it from my web browser here externally, I can block third-party cookies. So these are third-party cookies. And I do that with a lot of tools. Again, we saw here, I trust Siteboard, so even then there's statistics, Google Stats, Ajax, things like that. Some of this was definitely needed. But you can trust certain sites with some of these tools. I can actually, right here, I can trust the site. I have to reload it to trust it, and so things like my bank, I might trust. Maybe eLearn, for example, I would trust. Most of the time, third-party cookie blocking is going to be fine. But it could be, if you interact with a certain website, and let's go back to your bank, you might want to allow the third-party cookies from the bank at least, or allow, through like trust them through these type of blockers, just to help ensure you don't have any issues with the website. So again, I have had very little issues with blocking. Like I have a Raspberry Pi running something called Pile. I block ads around my entire home network here. The only thing that has issues with that is my Amazon Kindle. So I had to do a DNS redirect for that one. But in any case, I'm getting off topic here. Cookies. Other things to look at, computer hardware theft. So yes, we think cyber, passwords, encryption, but what about just locking your doors, locking your hardware, using a passcode on your mobile devices, a good passcode, by the way, not 1, 2, 3, 4. So, because physical loss of that is definitely one. Also, probably one of the biggest things is backups. Back up your files. If you don't back up your files, think about it right now. Do you back up your files? If you say no, then the files you use right now will be gone. It could be gone in 10 seconds. It could be gone in 10 hours, 10 days, 10 months, 10 years, but no one knows when. Things will break. Hard drives go bad. Corruption. Software corruption. I've had corrupted game saves before after a game patch. So if you're a gamer, you probably heard that before. Back up your files. And use something called a 3-2-1 backup. So it's good to back them up. 3 backups of your file. Three versions of your files. So let's talk about backups here. This is sort of a prevention here for you. And I didn't come up with this, but the 3-2-1 backup strategy. This actually came from a photographer, which I wish I would have now remember this. I like this cite the photographer, because imagine as a photographer, those photos that's the lifeblood of a photographer, right? Well, imagine if you're a photographer and you have a wedding party you just spent, they gave you a couple $1,000s and you have hundreds of photos and they all go corrupt because of something like this. You spill coffee on your keyboard. So that's gonna be bad. So 3-2-1, 3 copies of your file total. 2 local, which is, of course, the original file, and then a local backup, maybe on an external hard drive. And we have, of course, the first copy of the file. So 2 local copies, 2 copies local, and then 1 copy off-site somewhere, a cloud provider. Because this hard drive you use your backups on, supposed to be a U for backup, could go bad, right? So there's all kinds of providers. There's different ways you can back up your files. It's important that these are done automatically, both the automatic, whether you use something like I have iDrive or use just tons of third parties, free, non-free, create your own. Definitely want to make sure you back up your files. So that's a good prevention tip there. Talk about keeping track of threats. So, and I know I've skipped over this. I'll come back to it when we look at the textbook summary. Understand current threats. Biggest thing about understanding threats, I'll just put this up here, threat posts. I use threat posts a lot. I use your RSS feed for this, but also the news. Unfortunately, cybersecurity threats can be very clickbaity. If that's a term, I'm going to trademark that. So I actually had the local news call me once and actually interviewed me saying, we heard that all wireless is now insecure. There's been a hack found. And they did a story on the news. Well, yeah, it was, but with a caveat. First off, it was discovered by a security researcher. And the researcher posted just a summary of their findings without the details and without the malicious code they used to do it. And second, when they did post in the summary, to be able to do it took like 10 or 8 or 10 steps. That involved removing a router and putting one in place. And then basically cloning that router and then inserting a 0 key for the WPA key insertion. It was a very complex attack, and then third thing is they disclosed this to things like Android, iOS developer, Apple, Google, and router providers, ISPs all got it. Operating systems got it, Windows and Mac, and they patched it. They had a patch schedule. So patching is very important, by the way. We'll see that in a second. So you can see the story was like, oh, everything is hackable. Well, everything is hackable, I guess, in a way. But in reality, all your wireless is now hackable. Well, no, not exactly that. So you'll see posts about, current threats and vulnerabilities. Like, all iPhones are now hackable. Okay, well, yeah, and you look at the details and say, well, yeah, if someone has admin access on your phone, they can install this. Well, if someone has admin access or has my physical phone, I'm already screwed. So being informed is important because hoaxes are actually an attack vector. I could put out a hoax saying all iPhones are now hackable. Here's a way to prevent it. Well, in my prevention is a hack. So you can see how that comes into play. So again, keeping track of threats, and there's several ways to do this, and the textbook talks about it. So defense, again, I think I've already talked about some of this already, but we'll look at it. Things to look for. So again, have good news. Be paranoid, but again, be smart. Nothing's free. I mean, if you use Google, Yahoo, Apple, Microsoft, they all have some sort of collection. If it's free, you are sort of the product. You're paying with some of your data. It's up to you as a person to determine what you think is going to be the best value of that. I have a lot of work stuff here. I use Google Docs. I don't find with that because I get something from it. So social media, again, I think I mentioned before, think about what you admit about yourself out in the world. Your favorite books. What may seem benign in nature could be very handy to an attacker. And of course, let's see, picture self-log security, emails. Don't click on emails you're not sure about. Again, this is 5-minute sort of reiterating what I just said. Be careful what you your behavior online, about what you admit about yourself. Don't click on stuff. There's actually in the book it talks that there's actually in the textbook here it does have a link to, or it references the Sonic Wall phishing IQ test, which I think the URL in the textbook might be different now. Just Google Sonic Wall phishing IQ test and take this little quick test. And look at it and go, okay, well, is this legitimate? Or is this legitimate or is this phishing? So, what would you think just based on looking at this? So I'll say legitimate. This is phishing. I say because there's two P's in PayPal. That's not, it's incorrectly spelled, right? But again, it looks official, phishing. So go through this, and actually I still get stuff wrong too. I've taken this several times. OneDrive, sharing email, executive-team. I can't tell, take executive. They'll say it's good. Mobile, Mansoft, reactivate now, suspicious login block from your bank. That's a big one. If you ever think your bank, you get a voicemail, phone call, or email saying your bank account's locked, call your bank directly. So anyways, go through this thing. Let's say everything else is phishing. I'll just say that. Even that, I got something right. So I'll tell you why. So it's a pretty good little test. So this is referenced in the textbook, in the phishing test section. And again, I think the URL might be a little different. Just Google Sonic Wall phishing test, and you'll find it. So pretty little, great little thing to do. And usually I'll do this in class, face to face. So watch that clickbait. Don't click on stuff. Policies. Make sure you understand policies. You should have your own policies. Actually, have like strong passwords. Having backups of your files. These are not official policies. You have a written policy for, but understand too is the policies of every organization. Again, I know I'm really coming to personal security. This class is really meant for you to introduce you into more enterprise, organizational mindsets with operating systems. But pretty straightforward. You should have a policy for everything as an organization. Passwords, proper use of the internet. Don't go gambling. Don't download porn. Have strong passwords, and then also use a technical way to sort of enforce those. It could be setting Windows Active Directory to ensure strong passwords. Make sure they expire every 90 days or so on. So also, when you log into Windows, maybe you only have certain credentials. You can only access certain things. So we'll talk about that in a second. And that can be done through security policies here. So a written policy from the organization that's sort of given to you when you start a new job. You sign something, you understand this policy. That's also enforced, if at all possible, from within a technical aspects. Some sort of technical enforcement. That can be audited too, very important. If you look at cybersecurity, auditing is very, very critical. Firewalls. So firewalls, they're everywhere. Let's see, there's something here. Okay, it's a good one. So how a firewall works. Let's take this image here. Actually, let's mark this image up here. So what a firewall does is, firewalls run in different layers. Actually, I don't have my... You will have an external firewall to the outside world. You might actually have more of them too. There's actually possible to have something called a DMZ. You have another firewall here. And in here you put things like your web servers, email, and so on. You should have firewalls too on your client. There should be one here. On your servers, you definitely have firewalls. So firewalls come in layers. And how a firewall works in general, let's just close that for now, is this. So we have ports on our computers. You can see those later in the course. There was 0 to 65,500 and 63, I think. I gotta look that up now. Say 65K. It's a lot of ports. These are usually broken into different parts. I'm not going to get too much into detail more than that, but they're numbered. And these numbers align up with sort of think of a service. A service being an app or something underlying on the operating system we talked about last week. Underlying services, right? Like DNS, for example, domain name system, port 53. Port 80 is our HTTP service. And we know in 443, let's take those ones for now. HTTPS, very important, secure service. So we know if traffic comes in to port 80, anything with HTTPS or HTTP goes to our web browser. Our operating system does that, right? It will by default open up traffic in a web browser for that port. So what a firewall does is, besides breaking these into smaller chunks, a basic firewall really says, do I allow port 80 in or out? And in our case, we'll do blue. We'll say yes. Do we allow port 443 out and in? Well, yes. Do we allow DNS? Yes. But let's say we have port 22, for example, which is our secured shell, which something you might not use. And don't worry if you don't know what these are. You can hear about these more and more through your college courses here. But let's say you don't need this. So we don't want this running. So first off, we turn it off, but also our port, we block 22. So without getting too much deeper than this, our web traffic comes in packets, and those packets have the port number, where it's from and where it's to, as well as almost like an envelope. A from address, return it, who it's to and who it's from. And then part of that address information, IP address and things like that, is our port number. So when that packet hits our firewall, we can say, nope, you're not allowed. When a packet comes in for port 80, it's allowed and it comes in, and it gets handled by the operating system. So that's basically the basics of a firewall. And that's called packet filtering. It talks about it here. Let's see. Packet filtering right there. Packet filtering is how a basic firewall works. There are more advanced firewalls that are more, they're smarter per se. they can do session-based firewalls versus sessionless. And just, and I won't get into the details of that. That's again for further courses. But understand it uses packets for that to determine all this down here. So all right, so again, operating systems should have them. Personal firewalls on our devices. Windows has it. It has a basic firewall, and then you actually go into the details and you can edit, change firewall rules. Let's talk about security software. Is my NetLab still running? Okay, it is. So Windows 10. Let's talk about Windows 10. So Windows comes with Microsoft Defender, which in my experience is very, very good. There's a lot of them out there, and there's one in the book references called House Call from Trend Micro. You can download and run it for Mac, Android, and other things here, Windows 64-bit, Windows 32-bit, and so on. Free tool for that, it's great. We see Windows Defender. If I look at my settings, security, update security, and Windows security, you can see our virus protection threat, account protection, right there, virus protection threat. And there is our scan information. So this is built in the operating system, scans automatically, updates with Windows, and I've actually did a hack where we try to get around this, and it's very, very, very tough. It's not easy to throw a macro virus at this thing. This thing was very, very well made. So again, I'm not here to sell you this. I mean, it comes with Windows. So it's a fantastic operating system for that, and it's a fantastic way to protect that operating system. So Windows Defender, but there's all kinds out there. Anti-spam, email scanners, those might be on servers. Antivirus, you should have what we call endpoints, which is our desktops, and personal firewalls too. So skip over that. Let's talk about a couple things here. This is something you're going to see also in other courses, but we will just briefly talk about this. Authentication, multi-factor authentication. Probably one of the best protections you can have personal and for a corporation. So first off, what is first factor? First factor is something you know. In our case, the good old password and user ID, right? Pretty common. Username, password. And our second factor is something you have. So a lot of times this could be access to a device. It could be an actual key, like a key fob. We don't see that too much anymore. Those have sort of gone to the wayside. You used to use little plastic devices that had like a rotating code. And actually used a lot of places too. Steam Guard, even my Star Wars: The Old Republic MMO I've been playing has its own authentication secure key. So these would come to apps also, but they could be on a device you have, like a phone, or it could be an email address you own, or it could be, of course, a phone number, an SMS text message, and you'll get some sort of authorization key that's temporary sent to those, or rotates in some way. This is something you have. Again, a device, an email, SMS. Third factor is something you are. It's you, it's physical, biometric. It could be your eye, fingerprint, and so on. We see this now with almost all modern cell phones. We have that in place. And last thing, there's actually a fourth factor. It's on the slide here, but I will reveal it to you. And it is where you are. Example of this is like LastPass. LastPass for strong passwords has the ability to block any traffic from certain IP regions of the world. Like I'm not going to allow anyone in from the Ukraine region, from China, or certain parts of the world. Unless you plan to travel there, you need to sort of tell them you are. Even if someone has my ID and password, and maybe they did a chip burner on my phone, and they have my phone now, but they try logging in from outside of an IP address range that's allowed. Also, maybe like on base, maybe you can't log into a certain service unless you're on the IP address, IP network of within the base, for example, military base. So that's our authentication. After you authenticate, authorization is pretty straightforward. After you give proper credentials, then you're let in, and you're let in to a certain level. That's basically it. So when it comes to personal security and even corporate security, the accounts you use every day should not be what they call root or administrator accounts. You should have non-root, non-administrator. So, if at all possible. And you see this in Linux, Mac, Windows, as well as get to the corporate side, access to certain services should all be limited to the least amount of security that's needed for that role, for that person. So authorization, again, what you're allowed to access with those credentials. Authentication, again, strong passwords. Besides multi-factor authentication, having a strong password is going to be key. You can test out your passwords in a lot of ways. A lot of things like LastPass, OnePass have password sort of strength checkers. This is grc.com, and this is called Haystack, so you can Google that, GRC, Gibson Research Corporation. And if you want, you could actually do like, how strong is the word password? If I was going to do a massive crack against it, or even a fast attack, I can crack it in 2 seconds, probably a lot more than that. If I put a 1 on it, though, 17 minutes. If I put a special character on it, 9 months. If I make one of these uppercase. So passwords, it's about entropy. Entropy is actually a physics term, but to crack passwords, it's about the size of pool of randomness. So entropy is really just how we increase randomness is entropy. It's that. Again, if you come in, if I have lowercase a through z, you just have, that's it, right? Our 26 characters. If I add uppercase a through z, then I double it. I double my entropy. If I add in numbers, 0 through 9, I add 10 more to that entropy, plus 10. You can see my entropy grows as I add stuff. The amount of randomization grows. If I add in special characters, I forgot how many there are total, but $, pound sign. Again, we grow our entropy, it gets larger. Spaces, things like that, numbers. You can see if you just have password, as you saw, it's a very low entropy, easy to crack. There's less combinations that can be used for cracking. If it's uppercase, it gets larger. If I add numbers, I make it even larger pool. If I add special characters, I have a larger pool to crack. So again, entropy is a huge part of this. Randomization definitely is a part of this, you can see here. Now, that doesn't mean that this is a big secure password, because it's based off a dictionary word. So there's some level of measurement not be done here. But if I just did, like roll my face on the keyboard, that's definitely a secure password. So use a password tool like LastPass, something to have a strong master password that's multi-authenticated, and then have LastPass or some 1Pass store those long, unique passwords for every site. So very important, strong passwords. Secondly, unique password, unique password for each site. You don't want to use the same password you use for a gaming forum you also use for your bank. Bad idea. So, sticky notes for passwords is not a good idea sometimes, especially if someone can walk by and see them. Strong passwords, talked about already. And also, if you do have to create an unnecessary online account, delete accounts you don't need anymore online. Again, probably the more important is have a separate password for that account. So if I had to create a gaming forum account somewhere, I'll have a special username and password just for that account. So whether I'm going to keep it or not. And also, then, do you need to provide information to the account? Does the social security number or driver's license number, do they need that information? Try to limit what a account needs to have. And also a tip, birthdays. Birthday attacks are great. Birthday information is important. It can be used in all kinds of attacks. The password reset attack is an easy one. So there was a governor of Alaska, her name is Sarah Palin. Her Yahoo account was hacked. And all the attacker did was use the password reset built into Yahoo and the wiki page about Sarah Palin. And there was information about her husband, when she went to school, and her birth date and the date she was married. I believe it was her anniversary date. All she knew was that as a password reset question. So think about that information you put online again and how it can reflect to, for example, password resets. By the way, password reset questions are still horrible. Not a good way to do them, but a lot of companies still have those in place. So again, security accounts, try to use non-root or non-administrator accounts. And if you have administrator accounts, make sure they're password protected. Only use super user when needed. Guest accounts are nice, especially for like Chromebooks or even any computer where you want someone to use your computer. Let them use a guest account. And standard account is just that, which you should be using for most stuff. So Windows has a way to do this in computer management. You can see here. You can add or delete users, and also within here itself, in either control panel. So we can add users. When we add a user to an account, secure. I'll do password. Oh, look at that, security questions. Why? Anyways, I'm not going to go through all that. But what you do next, here we go. It's a local account. Different account types, administrator standard, and so on. There's also domain accounts. So domain accounts would be for use like corporations or the school itself. And those, of course, will be done through Active Directory. Computer accounts. There are a lot of accounts that are used just by the computer itself. For example, on Linux servers, you'll have an Apache account, an actual account for the Apache service. There's no Apache user per se. There's actually a person who sits down that logs in under Apache, but These things will be needed to help sort of sandbox or isolate those services in case they get breached. User account control. That's the thing that pops up says, are you sure you want to change this? You can see that here in Windows. Again, if I go to settings, user account control, if I can type, O-U-N-T. There you go. There it is. And if I change this, make it harder, you're going to get this a lot more often. So leave it set default. Don't turn it off, and don't turn it too high. It also really gets annoying. macOS has something like this. You can unlock certain aspects of the control panel or preferences panel. We'll get to Mac later. We'll see that. Secure Mac. Talked about this already. Encryption. If all possible, encrypt sensitive data. Your secure key is definitely important to keep it secret. It might be tied to. It'll be tied to a passphrase or password. And then also, when you do use traffic, this is probably the biggest one right here. If I go to a website, I need to create an account. And it does it over HTTP. That means everything I type and return back on that web page is unencrypted. So anything that I deal with should be HTTPS. That S means secure. File encryption. Operating systems can encrypt their home directories within Mac with BitLocker. Windows for BitLocker. Mac has File Vault. And probably the last things, hopefully we'll get to the end here, is be careful when you remove them. How you delete data. If you delete a file, it's not actually gone. It's still on your hard drive. It can be forensically retrieved. So there's ways to securely delete stuff. Or if you're going to give a computer to a school or a church, or you're going to donate it, you should be sure that that information is overwritten or wiped, or even remove the hard drive and put just an empty one in. So physical security, I talked about it already. In a corporate sense, you can have the best security in the world for cybersecurity, but you have a horrible physical security. Someone can walk in and get access to a server. So again, threat prevention, talked about that already. So that wraps up here. You can see that in the summary here of the chapter. Defense heavy, definitely. I may not cover everything. I think I covered in the 52 minutes now. It's a little bit long. Everything I wanted to. It's a heavy chapter, but it's good stuff. So if anything, come away from this with some personal security at least. Understand how it applies also in the corporate world. So anyways, I will look forward to seeing hopefully some folks in class someday. But anyways, enjoy this lecture. Thank you.